This is Fierce Conversations with Toby, where silence breaks. A woman I didn't know called me and said, "Whatever you do, don't read the comments." So, of course, I did. I've actually created a practice over the years. I don't read comments, not on articles, not on social media, not on interviews I've given, not anywhere. Because I learned something the hard way. When you've lived a story like mine, people don't just respond to it, they react to it. And reactions aren't always kind. But this time was different. The story had aired on Inside Edition. It was out there again. My life, my choices, my past, laid out for the world to interpret. And then came that phone call. A stranger, kind, sincere, and trying to protect me. Don't read the comments. And something in me shifted. Not out of curiosity, not even defiance, just a quiet pull. So I opened them. There were over 500, and most of them sounded like this. Shame on you, Inside Edition, for giving this horrible human being a chance to explain what a selfish POS she was and still is. If digmatized was a person, ma'am, it's been 20 years and you still romanticize helping a murderer escape. This woman is yet to take responsibility for the consequences of her actions. She's disgusting and still lying to herself 20 years later with no shame. Horrible old nasty woman, you didn't change. You're still as selfish as you were before, just thinking of your lust and ignored the people around you and the consequences they suffered from the time that you caught. I sat there for a moment, and I could feel it, that familiar tightening, the one that says, "Here we go again." But something unexpected happened. I didn't close the page. I didn't spiral. I didn't shrink. I stayed. And then I started responding. Honestly, not defensively, not perfectly, just honestly. And my husband, he stepped in too. Not as my spokesperson, not to argue, but as someone who loves me, standing in the space beside me. And for a moment, it looked like a back and forth, a comment section doing what comment sections do. But underneath it, something else was happening, something quieter, something I hadn't experienced before. I started to see it differently because the more I read, the more I realized I wasn't reading about me. I was reading pain. I was reading anger that didn't know where to go. I was reading stories, unfinished, unspoken, unresolved, finding a place to land. And that place just happened to be me. There's something about social media. It gives us a place to say the things we would never say to someone standing in front of us. It removes the pause, the humanity, the moment where we might otherwise say, maybe I don't know the whole story. And yet, buried in those 500 comments, there were voices I didn't expect. Kind ones, measured ones, people who saw something more. I might be the only one to say or observe this, but she's very intelligent and speaks incredibly well. She's disconnected herself from the scrutiny of the public and seems to manage her life as if nothing really happened. Wow, I've never seen anything like it before. At least she is doing great work. I'm not sure why all of the judgment against her, but she set up foundations and is bringing much needed awareness about justice or the lack thereof. Wonderful story. I'm glad she's living a happy life and that the guy she helped, John, is no longer suffering. Great story. What is she supposed to do? Dwell on every mistake she's made throughout her life? It's not okay what happened, but at least she's made something of herself and has a positive outlook and attitude. These comments are brutal. Just let the woman be happy in the last chapter of her life. There were more of those than I thought there would be, and that mattered. Not because they defended me, but because they reminded me that even in the loudest spaces, there is still nuance, there is still humanity, there is still grace. And for the first time, I didn't feel attacked. I felt sad. So unbelievably sad. Not for myself, but for the people who were so angry, so certain, so willing to tear down a perfect stranger. Because that kind of anger doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from somewhere deep, somewhere unresolved, somewhere that maybe has never been heard. And I thought about something. What do we do when the world decides who we are before we ever speak? Do we retreat? Do we fight? Do we disappear? Or do we stand and choose not to carry what was never ours to begin with? Those comments didn't define me. They never could. But they revealed something about the world we're living in, and about the way we respond to pain, about what happens when silence is filled with noise instead of understanding. And maybe this is where silence breaks.